After my wife's affair with my best friend, she forged my signature to steal $250, $0 worth of our family estate and filed a false lawsuit claiming I abandoned her. Now I'm fighting to keep what's left, and I suspect she's planning to disappear with it all. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be nothing but a lying, cheating bitch. But here I am, and honestly I don't even know where to start because it all spiraled so fast, and the worst part is, I saw the signs but didn't want to believe them. It all began about 6 months ago. Lisa had been acting a little distant. She'd come home late from work more often, and I'd catch her texting on her phone in the middle of the night, quickly shoving it away when I'd walk into the room. She'd brush it off, call it work stuff or friends from college, but I knew better. Something was off. She also started spending more money, expensive clothes, spa days, nights out with her girls that I later found out were just her and her side piece. David. Yeah, I said it. David, my best friend's name and the guy she's been cheating on me with. The thing is, Lisa's always been a little high maintenance, but she's also always been the kind of woman who'd tell me I was crazy if I suggested she was hiding something. She'd lie, deny, and then throw a tantrum if I pushed too hard. But I noticed her phone was more locked than usual, and her stories suddenly included a lot of business trips she insisted I didn't need to come along on. I was busy with work, so I didn't think much of it, just chalked it up to her being busy. Then one night I was cleaning up after dinner, just doing my usual routine, when I found her phone left on the kitchen table. I saw the notification of a WhatsApp message from David and my stomach dropped. It was a picture, her in a hotel room, half dressed with him. The message was explicit and it confirmed what I'd suspected for weeks. The worst part. She had sent it at 2 a.m. That's when I realized she'd been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face every single day. I didn't say anything that night. I just stared at the screen, feeling numb and furious all at once. I kept thinking about everything she'd said, all the times she called me paranoid or jealous. Turns out, she was the one cheating and she'd been doing it for months. I felt betrayed not just as her husband, but as her best friend, the guy she knew I trusted more than anyone. The next morning, I confronted her. I told her I saw the messages, that I knew about her affair with David. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She looked surprised, then angry, then started crying like I was the one hurting her. She told me I was overreacting, that David was just a friend, that I was seeing things, that I was paranoid because I didn't want her to have a life outside of me. She spun some bullshit about how I was controlling, how she deserved her freedom, and that I was just jealous because I wasn't satisfying her anymore. But I wasn't buying it. I felt like my world was crashing down around me. I'd trusted her for years, and now I found out she'd been lying to my face all this time. I was furious, but more than that, I was hurt, deeply hurt, that the woman I loved, the woman I thought loved me, was sleeping with my best friend and then lying about it. I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me, and I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything. That night I stayed up, going through her phone, her emails, her bank statements. I wanted to understand just how far she'd gone. That's when I uncovered something even more shocking. She'd forged my signature to steal $250, $0 from our joint account. She transferred it into her own account and then filed a false lawsuit claiming I'd abandoned her, trying to get full control of our estate. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She was planning to disappear with the money, to leave me with nothing. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. All the trust, all the years we'd spent building that life together, just evaporated in an instant. I knew I had to act fast. I called my lawyer the next morning, and that's when I decided I couldn't stay in this marriage anymore. I couldn't trust her, not after all this. I knew she'd try to cover her tracks, maybe even run with the money. I had to fight to keep what was left of our estate, and I had to figure out how to stop her from taking everything from me. I've been in a nightmare ever since, trying to piece my life back together while she's out there probably planning her next move. I don't know what's worse, the betrayal or the feeling of helplessness. But I do know one thing: I'm not going down without a fight. After I found out about Lisa's affair and her scheme to steal our money, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I trusted so blindly could turn into this manipulative, selfish person. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, trying to decide what to do next. I knew I couldn't confront her again without a plan. If she was capable of forging my signature and lying about everything, I had to be careful. I reached out to my lawyer first thing in the morning. His name's Mark, a no-nonsense guy who's seen it all. I explained everything: the affair, the forged documents, the lawsuit, the money gone. Mark told me to gather any evidence I could find and to be prepared for her to try to disappear with the money or even try to accuse me of abuse or abandonment to cover her tracks. He warned me that she was a master manipulator and that I needed to be ready for her to lie her way out of this. That afternoon, I started digging through our financial records, emails, and text messages. I wanted everything documented. I also hired a private investigator to follow Lisa. I didn't trust her to stay put. If she was planning to run, I needed to find out where and when. Meanwhile, I called my bank and froze our joint accounts. I didn't want her to be able to access any more money until I had a handle on what was going on. Lisa, of course, played the victim whenever I confronted her. She told me I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of things I had no proof of. She claimed I was overreacting and that I was ruining our marriage for no reason. She said she loved me, that she'd never cheat or steal from me, that I was just jealous because she was so much more successful than I was. She even had the nerve to cry and say she felt trapped, that I was suffocating her. I knew she was lying, but hearing her deny everything made my blood boil even more. I started noticing small changes in her behavior. She was more defensive, more secretive. She kept her phone closed, even hiding it when I entered the room. She'd make excuses about needing to go out for business meetings or urgent calls, but I'd catch her slipping away to take those calls in the bathroom or outside. It was obvious she was trying to hide something. I also noticed that her car was being detailed more often, probably to erase any evidence of her visits to David's place. One night I decided to check her phone again. I couldn't sleep anyway. I needed to see if she'd slipped up. Sure enough, I found texts from David, explicit messages, and even pictures of her in bed with him. I felt sick. It was the confirmation I needed that she'd been lying to me for months. All those late nights, her business trips, her working late, it was all bullshit. She was with him. At this point, I was furious but also deeply hurt. How could she do this to me, to us? I'd always been loyal, supportive, and I'd never even looked at another woman. And here she was, sleeping with my best friend, stealing from our family, and pretending to be the innocent victim. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, like I'd been blind all along. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with all the evidence in hand. I arranged for her to come to the lawyer's office the next day. I wanted her to see I was serious. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to let her get away with everything. I also wanted to catch her in another lie, if possible. I knew she'd spin some story, try to manipulate the situation, but I had enough dirt on her now to make her sweat. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around the betrayal, the money she stole, and the fact that I might lose everything I'd worked so hard for. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I let her get away with so much. I felt betrayed, angry, hurt, and most of all, helpless. But I also knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her win, not after all this. I had to fight for what's mine, for what's left of my life. The next morning felt like I was walking through a fog. I woke up early, my stomach twisted in knots. I kept replaying everything: her lies, the evidence, the money gone, the lawsuit she filed. I kept telling myself I had to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. I knew she'd try to spin things again, maybe even lie her way out of the mess she'd created. I needed to be ready. When I arrived at the lawyer's office, Mark was already there, looking serious. I explained everything I'd uncovered, handed over all the evidence I'd collected: the emails, the bank statements, the texts. He went over everything carefully, then looked at me with a grim expression. "Your wife's been planning this for a while," Mark said. "Forging your signature, draining your accounts, then filing a false lawsuit. It's a serious breach of trust, and legally she's committed fraud. We need to act fast to freeze her assets and prevent her from disappearing with the money." I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that I finally had some leverage, but dread because I knew this was only the beginning. Lisa was slippery, manipulative. She'd lie her way out of anything, and I had to be prepared for her to try to turn the tables. Mark advised me to serve her with a cease and desist order immediately. She was not to access any more funds, and we'd start legal proceedings to freeze her assets and investigate her for fraud. He also suggested I get a court order to prevent her from leaving the state or country. I agreed. I couldn't let her run with our estate, not after everything. While we were discussing the legal plan, I couldn't help but think about what I'd do if she tried to bolt. I'd already hired a private investigator, Jim, to follow her around. Jim had been tailing her for a few days now, and he confirmed she was planning to leave town, probably with the money. I felt a strange mix of anger and helplessness. I'd trusted her, and now I was watching her try to run away with what was supposed to be our life. That afternoon, I confronted Lisa again. I called her into the house, told her I had some serious news. I laid out everything, the evidence, the legal actions, the fact that her accounts were frozen. Her face twisted in anger, then panic. She started crying, throwing a fit, claiming I was ruining her life, that I was crazy for accusing her of all this. She insisted she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, and that I was just jealous because I didn't want her to have a life outside of me. She looked at me with those big, fake tears, trying to guilt me into backing down. But I wasn't falling for it. I told her she was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. I said I was done trusting her, that I would do everything in my power to stop her from taking our money. I explained that I'd already called the authorities if she tried to leave, and that I'd be fighting to get our estate back and hold her accountable. She screamed, called me controlling, said I was ruining her reputation, and accused me of trying to trap her. But I just stood there, cold and firm. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this again. I knew she was planning something, probably to disappear with the money, and I wasn't going to let that happen. Over the next few days, things got even crazier. Lisa started acting more erratic, trying to make me feel guilty, accusing me of suffocating her, saying I was turning her into a villain. She'd cry, beg, then suddenly go cold and dismissive. Meanwhile, Jim kept tabs on her, and he reported she was planning to leave town that weekend. I was on edge, waiting for her next move. I also found out she'd been spinning stories to friends and family, claiming I was abusive and neglectful, trying to turn everyone against me. I felt betrayed all over again. This woman, who I thought was my partner, was now trying to destroy me, legally and socially. I couldn't believe I'd ever trusted her. That night, I stayed up again, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what she was planning. I knew she was desperate, cornered, and dangerous. I'd seen her true colors now, and honestly, I was more scared of what she might do next than anything else. I'd fought for my marriage, for my family's future, but I could see now that she was willing to burn everything down just to get what she wanted, the money, the freedom, whatever she thought she deserved. I told myself I had to be prepared for whatever came next. I was ready to fight for what's mine, even if it meant going to court, calling the police, or exposing her lies. The betrayal cut deep, but I wasn't going to let her win. Not after all I'd been through. The weekend came and went in a blur of tension and paranoia. Lisa was more frantic than ever, packing her bags late at night, sneaking around the house like she was trying to hide from something. I kept my eye on her, knowing full well she was planning to leave town with the money she'd stolen. Jim's surveillance confirmed she was trying to make a run for it. I stayed up every night, waiting, watching, feeling like I was in some twisted game I didn't want to play but couldn't escape from. On Saturday afternoon, I finally decided enough was enough. I went to the lawyer's office again, got the court order to restrain her from leaving the state, and filed for an emergency hearing. I knew she'd try to slip away before the judge could even sign anything. I also contacted the police, gave them a full report, and told them about her plans to flee. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I was finally doing something, and dread because I knew she was capable of anything. That evening, I returned home, and Lisa was waiting for me in the living room. Her face was a mask of anger and desperation. She started crying again, begging me to let her go, saying she was just trying to get her life back, that I was suffocating her. She swore she never meant to hurt me, that she loved me but needed freedom. She looked so broken, so betrayed, at least that's what she wanted me to see. But I knew better. I knew her tears were fake, her words calculated. She was just trying to wear me down. I told her I had the court order, that she wasn't going anywhere. She looked at me with pure venom, then suddenly snapped. She yelled that I was ruining everything, that I was just a controlling, jealous husband who didn't deserve her. She accused me of everything, of cheating, of neglecting her, of trying to trap her. Her voice cracked with rage, and I could see the fury in her eyes. It was like she had completely lost her mind. Then out of nowhere, she reached into her purse and pulled out a set of fake IDs. I froze. She'd been planning this for days, trying to create a new identity, maybe even prepare to cross the border or catch a flight out of the country. I could see her eyes darting around, calculating her next move. She was desperate, cornered, dangerous. I stepped forward, grabbing her wrist gently but firmly. "Lisa, it's over. You're not going anywhere. The police are here, and they're going to take you into custody if you try to leave." Her face twisted in fury. Then she spat at me, calling me a controlling bastard and a liar. She was screaming, crying, trying to manipulate everyone around her. It was like watching a storm unfold, chaotic and terrifying. The police arrived shortly after. They took her into custody for attempting to flee with stolen money and forged documents. As they cuffed her, she looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with pure hatred. She spat in my direction and called me a piece of shit. I felt a mix of relief and disgust. Relief that she was finally restrained, and disgust for what she'd become. In the days that followed, I learned she'd tried to contact friends and family, spinning stories about how I was abusive and controlling. She claimed she was a victim, that I'd been neglecting her and trying to keep her trapped. That lie made my blood boil. I knew her too well. She'd always been a master manipulator, and now she was trying to turn everyone against me. Meanwhile, I was left to pick up the pieces. The court froze her assets, and my lawyer started working on getting the money back. I filed for divorce, knowing I couldn't stay married to someone capable of such deception. I also started the process of reclaiming what was rightfully mine, our estate, our home, our future. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. I'd fought to protect what little was left of my life, and I'd done everything I could to stop her from destroying me. I realized that trust, once broken so completely, is impossible to repair. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail to save yourself from the chaos others create. Now, I'm in the process of healing, trying to rebuild what's left. I keep thinking about all the signs I ignored, all the moments I brushed off because I loved her so much. If I could give anyone advice, it would be this: trust your instincts. When something feels off, don't dismiss it. Because once someone crosses that line, cheats, steals, manipulates, they might never come back. And sometimes the best thing you can do is fight for yourself and walk away. The aftermath has been a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional scars, and trying to piece my life back together. The court proceedings dragged on for months, and each day felt like a battle of its own. Getting the money back from her was a nightmare. She'd hidden assets, transferred funds offshore, and left behind a trail of lies. My lawyer worked tirelessly, but every step revealed just how deep her deception went. I felt like I was fighting a ghost, always one step behind, always trying to catch up with her lies. The divorce was finalized a few weeks ago. It was bitter, filled with accusations, but ultimately necessary. I had to let go of the woman I once loved and accept that she was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The hardest part wasn't the legal process. It was the realization that my trust was shattered, and I'd been so blind for so long. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I let someone I loved so much become this person capable of betrayal and theft? Financially, I lost a lot. The $250, $0 she stole was a huge blow, but even more damaging was the emotional toll. I felt betrayed not just as a husband but as a man who thought he knew his best friend. I cut ties with David completely. I trusted him, confided in him, and now I saw that he was just another piece of her game. The friendship was over, and honestly, I don't miss it. It's strange how people reveal their true colors under pressure. I also had to deal with the fallout from her false lawsuit. She tried to claim I abandoned her, which was a blatant lie. I was furious when I found out she'd forged my signature. She'd been trying to take full control of our estate, probably planning to disappear with everything. I had to fight to clear my name, to prove I was still the rightful owner of what was left. It was humiliating, but I did it. The truth came out, and she was held accountable for her fraud. Since everything's settled, I've been trying to rebuild my life. I've moved into a new place, started therapy, and focused on my career again. It's been a long road, and I still wake up some nights feeling the sting of betrayal. But I'm learning to trust myself again, to recognize red flags early, and to value honesty above all else. I've come to understand that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to cut out the toxicity before it consumes you. Looking back, I realize I was naive. I thought love was enough, that honesty and loyalty came naturally. But it takes effort, and sometimes people just aren't who they pretend to be. I wish I'd seen the warning signs sooner, but I also know I can't change the past. What matters now is moving forward stronger and wiser. If I could give any advice to someone reading this, it would be, never ignore your instincts. When something feels off, dig deeper. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. Protect yourself, be vigilant, and don't be afraid to walk away if someone shows you their true colors. Because at the end of the day, your peace of mind and integrity come first. And no matter how much you love someone, sometimes loving yourself means knowing when to let go. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how much I've grown, even if it came through one of the most painful experiences in my life. Losing that sense of trust, that feeling of security I once had in my marriage, was devastating. But I also learned something invaluable: the importance of paying attention to the signs, no matter how small, and never dismissing your gut feelings. Losing Lisa in the way I did was a hard lesson in the fragility of trust and the destructive power of betrayal. I always thought I was a loyal, honest person, but I see now that even the best intentions can be betrayed when someone's true nature is revealed. Still, I'm grateful I caught her when I did, before she could do even more damage. The legal fight, the betrayal, the lies, they all taught me that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even if it means losing someone you loved. What I want others to know is this: don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Don't ignore the red flags, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting your own well-being. Trust is precious, but it's also fragile. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to fix, and sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and rebuild. It's not easy, and it hurts like hell, but in the end, it's what saves you from a life of dishonesty and pain. I've learned that revenge isn't always about getting back at someone. Sometimes it's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. I may have lost the woman I thought was my everything, but I gained clarity. I understand now that true strength lies in knowing when to fight and when to let go. And I know that, no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way to start over. So, to anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation, stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to walk away from toxicity. Because in the end, your happiness and integrity are worth more than any lie or betrayal. And no matter how much pain you go through, time will heal, and you'll come out stronger on the other side.